Step back into the 1960s when a dozen eggs cost 66 cents, ground beef just 55, and yet a long-distance call could drain your wallet faster than dinner. This was a decade of affordable groceries, expensive connections, and nearly 3/4 of adults married, shaping a world both familiar and far away. Stay tuned as we uncover 10 forgotten things from 1,960 Seconds America. If you love nostalgic journeys, like and subscribe to keep the memories alive. The Beatles on The Ed Sullivan Show. It was February of 1964, and Sunday night television turned into history. Families gathered in living rooms, rabbit ear antennas, adjusted just right as Ed Sullivan introduced 4 young men from Liverpool. Then it began, the mop-top haircuts, the sharp suits, the jangling guitars, and with it, a sound that sent teenage girls screaming and clutching their chests as if the future itself had just walked onto that tiny black and white stage. For parents, it was puzzling. For kids, it was electric. The Beatles weren't just a band. They were a cultural earthquake shaking the walls of post-war America. In a single performance, living rooms became concert halls, and America's youth felt connected to something bigger than themselves. That night marked more than a music debut. It was the spark of a generational shift, the moment pop culture crossed oceans and rewrote what music could mean. And though countless bands have graced American screens since, nothing has ever matched the raw new energy of that first Beatles broadcast. It wasn't simply television, it was a revolution played live before a nation holding its breath. If you'd like more journeys into America's timeless memories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so these stories live on. The Sears Catalog, A Brick of Dreams. In the 1960s, before online carts and next-day delivery, the Sears Catalog landed in mailboxes like a gift from another world. Thick as a school textbook, its glossy pages unfolded into endless aisles of imagination. Clothes, toys, furniture, and even houses. Families flipped through together, children circling toys in bright crayon, parents dog-earing pages for Christmas or summer sales. It wasn't just shopping, it was daydreaming in print. Every page whispered possibilities, every item seemed attainable, if only patience held out. Waiting weeks for a brown box to arrive made the final moment feel like unwrapping treasure. And when the Christmas catalog came, excitement buzzed through homes like holiday music. But as malls expanded and later computers took hold, the catalog's reign faded. No longer did kids sprawl on the living room floor dreaming over its weighty pages. The ritual of waiting was replaced by instant transactions and fleeting satisfaction. Even so, anyone who ever marked a page in that catalog remembers the thrill. It was more than paper, it was hope bound in staples, a brick of dreams delivered straight to your door. Green stamps and the thrill of saving. Walk into a grocery store in the 1960s and along with your receipt you'd receive a strip of small green stamps. They seemed insignificant at first, just sticky little squares, but they carried a promise. At home, families gathered around the kitchen table, pressing those stamps into thick booklets, page after page, filling slowly like a secret treasure map. Children loved licking and sticking them while parents dreamed of the rewards. A shiny blender, a set of glasses, maybe even a toaster, all waiting in the catalog that felt more like a wish book. Collecting became a family project, every trip to the store adding another step towards something new. Over time, though, loyalty programs shifted, and the ritual of saving stamps gave way to credit cards and digital points. The quiet excitement of pasting paper squares disappeared with the changing pace of shopping. Still, those who remember can tell you trading in a full booklet wasn't just about the item you earned. It was about patience, teamwork, and the joy of watching small efforts add up to something big, metal lunch boxes and cartoon companions. School mornings in the 1960s often began with a proud ritual, grabbing your metal lunchbox on the way out the door. Brightly painted with your favorite TV show, comic hero, or cartoon character, it wasn't just a container for sandwiches, it was a badge of childhood. Inside, a matching thermos rattled slightly, still carrying the faint smell of milk, even when it was filled with soup or juice. Those boxes were tough as armor. They clanged when dropped, dented, but rarely broke, and sometimes even doubled as impromptu shields in playground scuffles. Kids traded cookies under the desks, compared designs during recess, and secretly judged who had the coolest one. Each scuff and scratch told a story of schoolyard adventures. But as plastic and soft lunch bags took over, those sturdy metal companions slowly disappeared. Handles cracked, latches rusted, and eventually they were replaced by something lighter, but far less memorable. For those who carried one, the memory isn't of what was inside, but the pride of swinging it down the hall, decorated with the colors of childhood dreams. Drive-in theaters beneath the stars. Imagine a warm evening in the 1960s. Families piling into station wagons, couples sliding into convertibles, and the smell of buttered popcorn drifting on the summer breeze. A giant glowing screen stood against the night sky while rows of cars lined up like a temporary village under the stars. You'd roll down the window, hang the heavy metal speaker on the door, and pray it worked. The magic wasn't just the movie, it was the togetherness. Children in pajamas dozed off in the back seat, teenagers shared milkshakes up front, and parents leaned back grateful for a night out that didn't cost much. Even when the film crackled or the sound cut out, no one minded. The stars above seemed to be part of the show. As malls rose and multiplexes spread, drive-ins slowly vanished. Land became too valuable, and the culture of gathering outdoors gave way to climate-controlled theaters. Yet the memory lingers, the flicker of a giant screen, laughter echoing through car windows, and the comfort of being part of something bigger than yourself. If you're enjoying this journey through America's past, hit like and subscribe so we can keep exploring these timeless memories together. And between pinball ice cream trucks and drive-in theaters, which sparks the brightest memory for you? Ice cream trucks and the sound of summer. On a hot July afternoon in the 1960s, the first notes of a tinny jingle drifted through the neighborhood like a call to adventure. Children dropped their bikes, scrambled for coins, and sprinted barefoot across sidewalks so hot they could scorch the soles of your feet. The ice cream truck wasn't just a vehicle, it was summer itself, rolling slowly down suburban streets. The menu taped to the side was simple: bomb pops, creamsicles, maybe a rocket pop if you were lucky. Yet the joy never depended on variety. It was in the chase, the shared laughter, and the relief of something cold melting faster than you could eat it. For kids, that sound meant freedom, sugar, and pure happiness condensed into a single moment. But as times changed, so did neighborhoods. Fewer children played outside in safety concerns, or shifting lifestyles slowly dimmed the truck's familiar tune. Supermarkets and freezers replaced the thrill of hearing that melody from blocks away. Still, for anyone who grew up then, one faint note of that jingle can summon the rush of sunburned afternoons and sticky fingers. It was more than dessert, it was community ringing through the air. Your comments keep these memories alive, drop yours below. Pinball machines and the glow of arcades. Step inside a diner or bowling alley in the 1960s and you'd hear it before you saw it. The sharp ding of bumpers, the crackle of flashing lights, and the steady clack of flippers slapping a silver ball. Pinball machines stood tall, like colorful guardians of fun, pulling in kids with pockets full of nickels and teenagers eager to prove their reflexes. The magic of pinball wasn't about graphics or screens. It was about rhythm. Each bounce, each tilt, each near miss sent a jolt through your chest. High scores weren't just numbers, they were bragging rights, carved into memory, shouted across the room, sometimes even carved into the wooden side panels when nobody was looking. But as video games arrived in the 1970s, pinball slowly lost its crown. The glow of pixels replaced the shimmer of chrome balls and joysticks, began to silence the steady clink of flippers. Still, anyone who ever dropped in a coin remembers that rush, that moment when the world shrank to a glass box, flashing lights, and the hope that this time, maybe you'd beat the score. The Ford Mustang, freedom on four wheels. The year was 1964, and America's streets suddenly roared with a new sound. The Ford Mustang rolled out like a thunderclap of freedom. Teenagers pinned posters to their bedroom walls, adults craned their necks when one passed by, and every diner parking lot seemed to have at least one gleaming under the neon lights. This wasn't just a car, it was a statement. The long hood, the growl of the engine, the rush when the tires caught the pavement, it all whispered of independence. To own a Mustang was to own the open road to claim a slice of America's restless spirit. Friends piled in radios, blared Motown or the Beatles, and for a generation, nothing felt more alive than rolling the windows down and chasing the horizon. But as the decades wore on, the car that symbolized youth became out of reach for many. Rising costs, changing tastes, and stricter fuel rules meant the dream slowly slipped from everyday driveways. Yet ask anyone who saw one glide past in the 1960s, and they'll tell you the Mustang wasn't metal and wheels, it was freedom bottled in chrome. And here's a question for you: between the milkman's bottles, the moon landing on TV, and the first Mustang, which memory stirs your heart the most? Watching the moon landing on black and white TV. It was the summer of 1969, and living rooms across America became sacred gathering places. Families pulled chairs close, children sat cross-legged on shag rugs, and all eyes locked on a small black and white screen with rabbit ear antennas wrapped in foil. The picture flickered, sometimes blurred, but when Neil Armstrong's voice crackled through the static, that's one small step for man, the world seemed to stop breathing. The moment was bigger than television. It was hope pressed into grainy pixels, a dream stitched across the night sky. Parents hushed their children, neighbors leaned in, and for one suspended instant, it felt like the entire nation was sitting in the same living room. Even the silence after each word carried weight, as though space itself was listening. Today we stream launches in high definition from phones we carry in our pockets. But back then, that fragile black and white image held the future. When Armstrong's boot met lunar dust, hearts swelled and tears welled up because it was proof that the impossible had just been made possible. If you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, hit like and subscribe for more stories that keep these timeless moments alive. The milkman and his morning gift. Picture this: the quiet dawn of a suburban street in the 1960s. Before the sun warmed the rooftops, you'd hear it, the soft clink of glass bottles being set down at the doorstep. The milkman's truck hummed low, moving from house to house, leaving behind rows of shining bottles that caught the morning light like treasure. The magic wasn't just in the milk itself, but in the ritual. Families woke to find breakfast already waiting, still cool from the night air. And if you were lucky, tucked among the white bottles was a surprise chocolate milk. For a child, that tiny detail turned an ordinary Tuesday into something that felt like Christmas morning. The taste was sweet, rich, and carried with it the comfort of being cared for. But with the rise of supermarkets and refrigerators, the milkman slowly disappeared. No longer did families wait for the sound of bottles at dawn. Instead, they filled plastic jugs from crowded aisles. The clink faded into memory, replaced by the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. Even now, many remember not just the milk, but the feeling, the certainty that the day began with a gift at your door wrapped in glass and kindness. As we leave the 1960s behind, it's clear that this was more than just a decade of low grocery prices, long-distance calls, or changing family life. It was a time when America balanced tradition with transformation, when everyday details from the cost of a carton of eggs to the sound of a rotary dial shaped the rhythm of daily living. These forgotten things remind us that history isn't only written in headlines. It lingers in kitchens, phone calls, and family albums. Looking back, we see how far we've come, but also how much of that era's charm still speaks to us today. Maybe it's the comfort of knowing a simpler time once existed, or maybe it's realizing that the roots of today's world were planted in those very moments. So what about you? Which memory from the 1960s resonates the most with your family's story? Affordable groceries, the cost of staying connected, or the way marriage defined a generation? Share your reflections in the comments. And if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because keeping these stories alive ensures that the spirit of the past continues to inspire the present.